Here is a great self-evaluation to see if you really understand everything we went over in the last video for shape tweening. If you can take these things right here that start out as a square and become a diamond and do both of these and just notice the one on the left does it uniformly top and bottom. The one on the right becomes a diamond on the top first and then a diamond on the bottom. Go ahead, pause, give this a try in a blank document. See if you can get it done. I'm going to explain what I did now. If you did take the time to do this, what you probably ended up getting was this at first, where it goes from the square to the diamond, but unfortunately it just does something that we probably really could do with a classic tween using morphing. So this one right here is a little bit easier, and to do that one all you really had to do was put a shape hint here and here and then match them up to the corresponding places here and here. And by the way, if you accidentally or on purpose flip-flopped your shape tweens, then what would happen is it would become this diamond, but it would turn 180 degrees at the same time. Okay, so that, not too tough, but this one is a little more difficult. It becomes a diamond on the top first. And in order to pull that off, I realized there was no way to do it that I could think of that didn't require an intermediate shape. So I ended up making this shape and just put it in the middle. So that's my first, or I should say my middle shape. So there's my first shape, there's my middle shape, and the end shape for all of them is the same. And this one also required shape hints. So I had to put a shape hint at the top of the square here, and then at the top of the diamond, and then I had to put one here, and then one down there. I'm going to show you a very powerful editing technique that you probably want to write down because at some point you'll probably need this. So let's just imagine we'll take one of the more complex ones. Let's say that, and in fact, let's just turn the eyeballs off on these other ones here. Okay, so let's say that we made this kind of somewhat complex shape tween, and then all of a sudden we decided that we would rather it was over here. But it was only going to ever appear one time, so there's no sense turning it into a symbol and moving it. How could you do that? Well, if you don't know this technique, you might think that you're going to have to move all three frames, keyframes, one at a time, which, imagine this thing was even more complex, would just be a crazy endeavor. There's a feature on here that's called Edit Multiple Frames. And if you remember that it shares some similarities with onion skinning, that might help you. For one, it's located right next to onion skinning. So here's what you do, is you click this on, and a lot like onion skinnings, you have parentheses that you deal with, or I think of them as parentheses. So you set the leftmost position and the rightmost position, which is already all the way over. And so what that does is that's telling you that when you make a selection, anything between this left area on the timeline and this right area on the timeline will be selected. It's usually a good idea to lock everything that's anywhere nearby it, and then you just simply make a marquee type selection around it and you move. And what you're doing is you're actually moving all of the keyframes in question. And so I'll go ahead and turn off Edit Multiple Frames, and then I'll preview this, and you can see that I did indeed move that there. I will delete all those extra layers, and then we'll get on to making the inchworm. See if you can figure out how to do this before we do it together, where you could make this inchworm only cycle one time. In other words, go from flat to its back hunched up and still be able to use it to look like it's moving across the stage. I cleared out all of those other layers, made a layer for the worm, and on the first frame here, I just drew out with my classic brush tool the worm. I'm going to go about a second later, do an F7, and now I'll draw the worm in the hunched up or the inched state. Turn on the onion skinning so I can see where that was. So I don't want it to look like it's getting anywhere, just hunching up. I'll turn off the onion skinning. I'll put in my shape tween. And if I scrub the playhead, you can see we have just that. The worm would just look like over and over. It was just moving up and down. So now hopefully you're thinking, wow, all we have to do is change that into a symbol and then animate the symbol from left to right on the stage. And that's exactly what we're going to do. Select this area with a click and a shift click, right click, and select cut frames. Always a good idea to save before you do that. Go to Insert, New Symbol, or Command F8, and we'll call this Iworm. We're going to make this just a graphic symbol, and then once we're inside of the symbol, we're going to control or a right click, and we are going to paste frames. So now we have that motion over and over. Go back to the main timeline by clicking here. And then now let's bring out an instance of that symbol. And we'll just go ahead and put on the same layer since it is blank now. And I'm going to stretch this out with a bunch of F5s because I just want you to see something first. If I preview this with the command return, we now have the inchworm on the treadmill, if you will. And this is a very good technique if you had a sequence of a person running or a bird flying. This is a great way to just make it look like it's mobile, like it's not getting anywhere. Then all you have to do is animate this symbol going from one place to another. So we'll go ahead, go all the way out here, do an F6, and then with the F6, we're going to move this symbol out. Now here's the only part that may be a little bit confusing, is what kind of tween do you think we're going to do to go from here to here? The answer is it is just a classic tween, because even though this is a shape tween inside the symbol, out here on the stage, if we select this and go into properties, it just tells us that it is a graphic symbol. So graphic symbols get classic tweened. Now it should look like that inchworm is moving across the stage. And if it's going a little bit too fast or a little bit too slow, we control that with the spacing here. So if we bring that out a little bit, it should slow it down. Oops, accidentally added some stuff in there. Let me just make sure I've got a good hold on that. So a click, then a click and a drag, and then it'll take on a slightly different appearance. Now, how do we put the little smiley face on the worm? And these are the perfect times to pause and think about how you would do it, or actually try to do it. Because I've seen students do a whole bunch of work on the main timeline with something like a smiley face or a hat on the worm, when all they had to do is think about it for a second and say, no, wait a minute, all I have to do is go inside the symbol and do it there. So let's try that. We'll go into the symbol. We're just going to add another layer, and inside that keyframe, I'm going to get up close, and then we're just going to use our classic brush tool and draw in a couple features. Now, when we scrub the playhead, we just have one more problem to overcome here. So here's how we're going to fix that. We'll lock this layer, we'll select the stuff on this layer, and we're going to convert that into a symbol so that it can follow the face. So F8, name it, all that good stuff. Now, depending on how complex the movement is, we may have to do several breaks in between here, or several keyframes in between here, but let's try the simplest solution first. We'll just go all the way out to the end of the tween, do an F6. We'll grab our freeform selection tool, and let's see if we can't just back that up, give it a little bit of a twist, and let's see what that is going to look like. We'll put in our classic tween. Now here's odd, right? We've got a classic tween and a shape tween all going on inside of the same symbol that out on the main timeline is being classically tweened. And that works good enough. Go back out to the main timeline, scrub the playhead, and we can see whether it's in forward or reverse. That looks pretty good. Now all that's left is to clean this up a little bit. I'm just going to do that by F5ing out here to a even second to make it easier when I do my cut frames and paste into my main production file. Back in the main production file, we just need to take a look at this and say, okay, that should come in on the very next frame there. Create a new layer for it. Do F7, right click, and paste our frames in. And then we can make a folder, clean that up, and then we'll move to the end and get it ready for the next part. We like everything to be sitting there for a while before our fade goes in, and by a while I mean about a second. So I think in this case, maybe just adding another half second to here would be good. We'll come up here, go back about a second, and that's where we'll do our F7 and put our fade in. Of course, the layer has to be unlocked for that to work. And there we go. You know what to do from there over the next second and a half. And then I repeated the steps that you've already learned for bringing in the next chapter. And we are all good for our next topic.